Hello, everyone. So glad to be with you today. And I was just sitting here thinking what a treasure this technology is, even though sometimes we don't think or it gets in our way. But here we are all gathering, coming together to practice together, to be with each other, to listen, to offer our hearts and minds to each other. So let's begin with 15 minutes of the gift of this silent practice, sitting together as you settle into your posture and connect with your breath, connecting with each other. Let's recite the verse of the robe. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Hello again, everyone. It's so good to be with you today. Here's where I want to start. Let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by, and opportunity is lost. Each of us should strive to awaken. Awaken. Take heed. Do not squander your life. I'm sure you recognize these words or something like it. They are the words connected to the Han, the ancient temple ritual of hitting wood with a mallet, calling people, monks, to practice. It's some pretty good advice when we consider the truth of what life is all about. And yet, we as human beings struggle, ignore, bargain, and even deny what the truth of birth and death means until something happens that calls us up short and faces us with this. Dogen Zenji taught about the great master, the great matter, probably the great master as well, throughout his practice and teaching life. It is really the ultimate consideration for us. We talk about it a lot here in Inquiry. I want to add my voice to it today. I've been thinking a lot about it, a good deal this summer, as I've been in the role of caregiver for my husband since his cancer diagnosis earlier this spring, and then the daily radiation and weekly chemo treatments. In fact, it has been an inquiry for me since my own diagnosis of chronic blood cancer 8 years ago. This summer, though, I recited the words of the Han daily with deeper awareness. When I was more focused on my own health situation, I considered life and death as a personal process primarily. It still is, of course, but expanding awareness of what it means if my husband dies before me brought our relational practice to a deeper level. I'm so grateful for the Appamada model of practice being relational as well as personal. The not two lines from the Xin Xin Ming are reflected in this way of being. Birth and death are not two. You and me are not two. And yet, we experience all of this as we are individuals and what I call relationals. Saying all of this, it strikes me as common sense, being Appamada Zen students, and yet there is struggle in facing life and death. In a death-illiterate, death-denying, and death-negative culture, as one teacher puts it. Alua Arthur, an end-of-life and death doula, says, when we live in relationship with our mortality, it adds direction to our actions, truth to our words, rapture to our experience, authenticity to our being, and maybe puts a few pounds on our hips. We can make choices that resonate with the core of our being, free from societal expectations and judgments of others. I like this a lot. It puts the proverbial meat on the bones of the Han, I think. And then there's Suzuki Roshi, who was a master of giving images so we could picture the truth, not just think about it. He said, Life is like stepping onto a boat which is about to sail out to the ocean and sink. I think I hear that and I read it and I go, well, okay then, Roshi, what do we do about all this? How do we use the truth, the circumstances of our lives? Frank Ostaseski, a Zen teacher and co-founder of the first hospice for AIDS patients in San Francisco, wrote a wonderful book 9 years ago titled The 5 Invitations, based on conversations he had with people over the years about their experiences at the end of life. He gleaned what he called the 5 invitations from the wisdom shared with him. They helped me a great deal the first years of my illness, and I referred to them regularly. I know I've spoken them here before, but they are so worthy of many repeats. Here they are. The first one, don't wait. It addresses the common kicking the can down the road idea and reveals that the road does have an end. The second invitation is welcome everything, push away nothing. This can have a very steep learning curve, even if we are willing to attend to accepting something. Welcoming it is a higher level of challenge. Bring your whole self to the experience. What this one had me think of is last week, when asked advice about how to attend any Olympic event, a well-known athlete who was going to be competing himself said simply, be where your feet are. I really liked that. It was said so clearly, and yet the image of it was the whole expression of bringing your whole self to the experience. The fourth one, find a place of rest in the middle of things. It doesn't say find a place of rest after you've got everything done. Find a place of rest in the middle of things. This is guidance in recognizing the inner capacity for calm rather than being controlled by external circumstances. Of course, this depends on practice, and it is essential. The last one of the invitations, practice, don't know, mind. I think this speaks to cultivating beginner's mind that Suzuki Roshi is so well known for saying and inviting us to. Because beginner's mind brings curiosity and wonder to the fore. I'm not going to say much more about these specifically, as they are worth a deeper dive and study, but rather I want to offer others' perspectives on what to do, on how to use our lives. From Flying Edna, 2 artists and whimsical poets, Fia and Kai, offer this. I hope that when I go, it is a long time from now, and that all the people I love know I was thrilled to have had a life with them. So my plan is to keep doing that every day, even before I have coffee. To be fair though, it's easier to be thrilled after a few cups. To close my remarks, I want to read to you a few paragraphs from an article written by Blanche Hartman, Flint's primary teacher at the San Francisco Zen Center. She died in 2016. And I think this article brings her here right now for us. It's titled, Just Being Alive is Enough. She starts it with, in 1989, I had a heart attack. As I was leaving the hospital, I stepped out into the sunshine and I had this sudden realization. Wow, I'm alive. I could be dead. Wow, the rest of my life is just a gift. And then I thought, oh, it's always has been, from the very beginning. Nobody owed me this life. It was just given to me. Wow. And in that moment of waking up, I found what a wonderful, rich feeling it is to be grateful to be alive. Just right now, right here, all the time. I don't have to have anything more special than knowing that just to be alive is enough. The great poet Emily Dickinson said, "To live is so startling, it leaves little time for anything else." And Brother David Stendhal Rast, a Christian mystic, says, "The greatest surprise is that there is anything at all, that we are here." And from Omram Michael Avenhov, he's a Bulgarian philosopher and mystic. "The day I acquired the habit of consciously pronouncing the words thank you, I felt I had gained possession of a magic wand capable of transforming everything." Blanche goes on, "So living this life of gratitude has really changed my life. I used to be both quite opinionated and quite ready to criticize anyone who didn't agree with me. Now I recognize that my life depends on all the lives around me. We all support each other. None of us could take care of ourselves in a world all alone." Contrary to a program on one of the streaming stations that is called Alone, about men living in the wilderness, proving that they can live alone. So, I put that in there. "We're so completely interwoven and interdependent," she says. "Our life depends on one another. And as you begin to realize that, you can't help but be grateful." She then brings in something from the Dalai Lama. She identifies it as his bodhisattva vow. He says, "Every day, think as you wake up, 'Today I am fortunate to have woken up. I am alive. I have a precious human life. I am not going to waste it. I'm going to use my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. I am going to have kind thoughts towards others. I am not going to get angry or think badly about others. I am going to benefit others as much as I can." Blanche says, "This is our essential vow as bodhisattvas, and of course, you are all bodhisattvas." Suzuki Roshi always used to begin his talks with "Good evening, bodhisattvas." That's what we're here for, to be awake beings. And awake beings are awake to the deep connection we have with everything, with all living beings, she says. We are all one life, and we need to take care of that life so that it continues generation after generation. I'm bowing to Blanche right now. So this is what I have to say today. The caregiving life I've lived these last several months has been a roller coaster of emotions: worry, sorrow, love, joy, kindness, generosity, anger, and many opportunities for wholehearted practice. I know our lives are challenging, that the world feels so messy and painful and tragic. Hearing about another tragedy close to home or far away, I get caught in thinking, what I offer can't possibly be of any use, and yet that is the question facing us always as we strive to live fully between birth and death. How am I going to use my life for the benefit of all? I'll close now and am open to hearing your thoughts, your ideas, your offerings, your concerns. Thank you. Hello, Lori.
Hi, Suzanne. Thank you so much for your talk. It was really lovely. And it's something, I think about this a lot. How am I going to live this life and the benefit of others? I I think about it a lot. And um, and I really don't have an answer. I guess it's an ongoing inquiry, Um, but I guess, yeah, so I don't have any answers to that at this particular time, but it's just something that I kind of hold a lot. And I, I mean, I know that we were talking a little bit about this, not specifically this subject this morning after Zazen, about just talking about the connectedness, which you referred to, that we all have. And that, our own practice and our own actions do have an impact on others. And so it seems so simple, and yet, we have to pay such close attention and so forth. So, yeah, it seems like that's kind of the start. The start is the awareness and of our own actions and how they impact others.
Mm-hmm.
But precisely one thing, what is hard to come up with.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Thank you, Lori. What comes up for me is I think it was Rilke, the poet, who says, if we're asking the right question, our life will become the answer.
Ah.
And I think he said that in Letters to a Young Man.
Uh-huh.
And when I read that, I thought, well, that's brilliant. I don't have to go searching for the answers for my questions I don't have answers for.
Thank you for that.
You- Thank Rilke for that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for this. I
Mhm,
appreciate it.
You're
It's
welcome.
the right question.
Mhm.
We have Bonnie.
Hello, Bonnie.
Hello, Suzanne. I'm not one who speaks up often on the screen, but I really want to add my voice of gratitude to you for your talk and for your ongoing teaching around all that you've described. Um, I too am in a situation that caregiving has become and will continue to become a big part of this precious life. It's it's the gift that has been presented, that life has presented. And so, you're mentioning the 5 invitations today is just like, yes, that's important. And also knowing how difficult it can be to go beyond accepting to welcoming what's there. And the practicing of don't know mind, which for me, when I can do that, it opens that kind of space, a space of pausing. And then, and this is Zen peacekeeper stuff, then what's the next wise and kind way I can respond, which kind of takes it out of the mode of fixing it. How can I, solve this into ordinary life, one step at a time. And so I'm just back to how I started with gratitude. Your presence in my life and the life of our local sangha and our bigger sangha here has just been and continues to be so inspirational. So thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. I know that you are in this role. I consider you a partner in this role of caregiving. And, as you said that word, what I was struck with is the common word in our culture is caretaker. But we always use caregiver.
Mhm.
We give care, but I guess what also is part of the experience is that care comes back to us. If not from the person we're giving care to because they're not able to, then from all around us.
Mhm.
And that's what I need to remember is, oh, when Steve can't give me care back because he's in such misery, there is a lot of love all around.
Yeah.
So here it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
opening opening up to it. So thank you, Bonnie.
Yeah. And you know that what you just said reminds me of a term that's used often in the dementia caregiver community. It's care partner. And I think I'm learning a lot about, and I don't know how to put this into words, but relational practice, how I am and who I am and who she is and how she is, it's all one. It's just interdependent, and we're really partnering each other with the help, obviously through this experience.
Mhm.
So anyway, thank you again.
Thank you, Bonnie. You're welcome.
We have Bridget.
Hello, Bridget.
I have a different computer now and I have to push different spots to unmute, but thank you. I too want to express gratitude, and I have great compassion for you because I was my late husband's caregiver for 4.5 years. But in, I was curious, particularly, I was heartened that you mentioned the range of emotions you were speaking about, including anger and frustration, because those were, the, as a child, I was told, we just weren't allowed to express anger in my family, and then we weren't supposed to cry, and if you cried, you were going to be given something to cry about. So I was wondering if you could touch on that more, because I think that's often dealing with the healthcare system and some of the situations. Um, that's where I would find myself most frustrated, and of course, life brings other opportunities for me to have that. But I was curious how you make that turn towards it, whether in terms of bringing the curiosity towards it or whatever. How did you make that turn when you felt those stronger feelings, emotions of, well, they may not have been stronger than the others, but just the
Well, sometimes they
anger.
are. Yeah, yeah. Well, anything that happens that we don't want to have happen, it can come up so quickly that our body goes, ugh, and we're in a flash of anger about it, meaning this isn't what I want.
Mhm.
This isn't the way I want it. Well, one of my sisters, whenever she hears that, and I come from a large family, whenever she hears something going wrong, she says, I don't like it. And I say to her, yeah, I know, but what are we going to do? You know, our nervous system reacts a lot quicker sometimes than our conscious brain does. And if we don't acknowledge it with, oh, there you are, anger. Okay, anger's here. What am I going to do with it? That's the question. Not that we have it, not that it arises, but what am I going to do with it? For example, yesterday afternoon, I had to take my husband to the clinic. I think my car can get there automatically now. We've been there so often. And it was an unexpected 2-hour treatment, completely unexpected. And I sat there going, this is not what I want. I know this is not what he wants. And here we are anyway. So talking to myself about it, as that part of me that's arisen, I think is one of the things that we really do need to cultivate, rather than letting that part take us over, that we go, okay, here you are, I get it. It's okay. It wasn't expected, and it took 2 hours out of your day that you didn't want to give 2 hours to. Okay, that's okay. Does that make sense? Does that respond some to
It
what you said?
does. And especially the fact that you said your nervous system jumps ahead, but
Yeah.
then to slow down long enough to say, oh, that's right. This isn't what I'd prefer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
think of the Shin Shin Ming. I seem to be sort of attached to my preferences.
Exactly, exactly. The way isn't difficult for those unattached to our preferences. Okay, that's a mouthful. All right, you know,
Well,
that's
I'm
the
sending you a
there.
bouquet of hugs because being, whether it's a care partner or a caregiver, it's a tender place. And when I was in your position, sometimes we would come home from some treatment or activity, and we might just eat a cup of soup and then decide to trade a foot rub. So there's just tender moments, and I'm
Yes,
sending you my
yes,
compassion.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. And of course, this caregiving and caretaking needs to be back here as well.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget.
I'll pop Chris next to you next.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hello, Chris. Good to see you.
See you and good to see everybody. Your talk made me think about giving a little report from the Cape, where I just returned from Flint's week-long seminar, and it was wonderful, by the way. Anyone who, I don't know if he'll ever come back, I don't know, but if you ever get a chance, it's just an amazing experience. This is, I think, my 6th or 7th time. People couldn't believe it. Keep coming back. Anyway, but this is common knowledge now. So, but one of the things that happened that kind of fits in with your talk is that Flint tested positive for COVID right before.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't, he thought for a while that maybe he couldn't come at all or that he couldn't come in person. And there were 55 people there. Probably 50 of them are therapists, pretty high-powered therapists, I would say. And so the first day, Flint did it on Zoom. And I just wanted to say a word about it, how that was. First of all, people were very disappointed, because they'd come, for, expense and energy and time and had, found a place to stay. And here we were watching a screen. And, some people were grumbling and mumbling, I didn't come here to watch TV. And what he did was he scrapped the entire first day that he was planning to do in person. And he did something, as Flint does, just at the last minute, off the cuff, brilliant, responsive to the moment. And one of the things that he did was he presented to us a case study using himself as the patient and asked all of us, how would we treat this patient as a psychotherapist? Patient, with all of his life history, which some people knew and some people didn't, but it was very clear very soon that it was him. And his experience of wanting to come to this seminar and feeling disappointed and coming across his lifelong pattern of, wanting to be perfect and wanting to please people and not wanting to disappoint people. And, and what were we to do that as therapists? And then the second part of that was to imagine ourselves being a Zen teacher. And he was coming in as a senior Zen teacher, and he was coming in the same exact scenario as a Zen teacher who was coming to see the teacher. And how would we respond? It was brilliant. It blew people away. But one thing that I wanted to say that was so interesting right away was the turn that people had, because a lot of people said, oh, I was only thinking about myself and what I was missing. It never occurred to me to think what you, Flint, might be missing by not being here in person with us and not being able to do everything that you wanted to do. And it just, and most of these people had very little experience with Buddhism, maybe a little bit, some mindfulness kinds of things, but the turn that happened. And so that when people took on the role, more or less in the way that they could, of being the teacher, the room became almost completely silent. And people started leaning in and whispering to each other because they were coming from a deeper place. And the other thing I just wanted to say was that he was quoting from a book that I had also read, um, finding, finding and losing, or losing and finding, I think, lost and found. Anyway, there was a wonderful quote in there. I think from the Middle East. It's this old quote, and it said, "If you want to make a man happy, take away his donkey and then give it back." That's exactly what you were saying. Right? All of a sudden, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. It comes back. It's amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing that story. Receiving his pictures and his comments through the week, I thought, oh, things are okay, even though it started with disappointment and
Yes,
sorrow about it.
it was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That book, by the way, is on my kitchen table right now.
We have Leslie.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hello, Leslie.
Nice to see you, and thank you for being here. And thank you for this talk. I, maybe like several others, this topic has been on my mind every day of my life. I mean, you just hit me right where I'm living these days. And I'm not really in the same place. I'm not a caregiver yet. That hasn't happened to us, but I have lost so many close friends in the past 3 or 4 years that I'm really feeling the loss of that, and plus not just close friends but multiple acquaintances. I think it's just part of getting older. That's what happens. So I guess what the way that this hits me, and those 5 invitations were wonderful. I wrote them down as you said them, so thank you for that. Is something I've just been really conscious about or striving for is what I call living intentionally and making choices that make my life richer instead of just sort of floating along and doing things just because I've been doing them for a long time, and kind of a reboot. And it's really been a process, and sometimes it's kind of challenging to think, okay, what is the most important thing to me right now, and how do I want to live my life?
Do you have an example, Leslie?
Yeah. One example is getting more personally involved at Appamada. I, over COVID, kind of lost my spiritual community. It dissolved over COVID, and I found myself really longing for that. And I'd been doing, coming here and things, but I hadn't been there in person to actually know people and, have an in-person community. And that was one thing that I really was really important to me to do, because I was really feeling the lack of that. Being here is great, but being in person is another dimension of it. So I really wanted to do that. I mean, that's just one example. There are a few other things too, but anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. I think what I'm thinking is, even though I'm not in that caregiver role, we're not in crisis yet. Nobody's, been diagnosed with anything, but I keep saying life will change on a dime. This afternoon, we could get a diagnosis, and our whole worlds would be different. And I'm so aware that every single moment might be the last one like this. And I'd better cherish it. And I'd better live it the way I want to live it intentionally. I guess that's really what's coming up for me.
Beautiful, Leslie. Thank you for that wonderful teaching. Mm.
Well, thank you, and really appreciate your bringing it up like you have. Appreciate you.
I'll go ahead and go. I'm Sue, and really glad to see you, Suzanne, and everybody. Um,
Hello, Sue.
I couldn't find my raised hand. I'm sorry.
No, it's not this Sue, Maria.
Wrong, Sue. Sorry, Sue.
This Sue.
Nice to see you, though.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Sue. Um,
Have a look.
it's been there's been a lot of I've been being taught a lot lately, and Mike and I just got back from Seattle. We were visiting our son and his husband has long COVID. And my son had asked me to please step in and try to help him. He's a therapist. And anyway, I thought because I'm a therapist, I could help him. And what happened was nothing really worked, that I offered. And I felt myself getting sicker and sicker, like literally more and more stressed out. I couldn't pull myself out of it. I just needed to lay down and sleep. Like I was feeling my whole body shut down. And so I came back. I was in so much grief, to honor the grief, to feel like a failure, like I could not help either of them the way they needed to be helped. And I came back here and I just felt all these physical symptoms coming up for me because I wasn't acknowledging the grief that I was feeling. And this has opened me up. I love the 5 invitations. Finding a place of rest in the middle of things hit me just now. And what I don't want to happen, and I don't know how to do this right now, but what I don't want to happen is for me to block, to put up a wall out of protection for myself. I still want to be available for the love and for the caring. But that's how I'm struggling right now. And I just don't know even the question to ask, but I feel like you opened up some opportunities for me to work on my practice edge a little.
Can I ask a question, Sue?
Absolutely.
It's good to see you.
I so missed you at the retreat this time, but I really were thinking about you a lot and honoring the reasons you couldn't be there.
So when you say you're concerned about blocking yourself off or closing yourself off, can you say some more about that?
Right. Reaching out to ask how Izzy is his name, how Izzy is doing. Like just reach out and say, how are you today? I'm thinking about you. I can feel the grief and I'm feeling it right now. It's like the grief just keeps coming up.
Yeah.
And it feels like the only protection is to block it, to not feel it, because I'm so afraid of it sucking me in and down.
So this concern you have is that the grief is going to consume you.
Yes.
Is that it?
And it's messy, right? It's mixed up with I failed. I failed him.
Mm,
Why couldn't I have helped some way, in some other way? Maybe not in the ways that I intended. Was there some other way I could help?
mhm.
And I literally found myself tearing up here and realizing what I want to do is tell him how much I love him.
Oh, yes,
Mhm. Yeah.
yes, Sue, yes.
Mhm.
And that love can go out and it needs to come back to yourself
Right.
and to love your grief for what it is expressing.
Yeah.
That big heart, deep heart in you.
Yeah.
We won't feel grief for something that we're not capable of,
Mm. Thank you.
and for what we love. We don't feel grief for if we don't love somebody or something.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, your big heart is here. And there are times when we do need to guard it a bit so that we can do something deliberately.
Mhm.
I heard you use that word failure a couple of times. And anything that doesn't look like it's working is really more information for us. If we label it as failure, that takes us in a direction.
Mm.
But if we consider it, oh, this is information, and then we can ask ourselves, what's the information that I'm receiving here right now? And it sounds like the information you received is, I'm just terribly sad about this. I have a sibling who has long COVID. She's had it for 3 years. And every time we connect, I can feel it. I feel it. Yeah. It's not a light thing to be with at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming, for speaking to this, Sue.
Yeah.
You're not alone
Mhm.
at all. I want you to know that,
Thank you so much, Suzanne.
right?
It's so good to be here. Thank you.
It's good to be with you, Sue. Take care.
No.
I saw some chat going on about the author of that book, Catherine Schultz.
Ah, right. I got the right one then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Flint highly recommended it to me, so I immediately ordered it from my library because he never gives bad recommendations for things. So let's complete today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here, for being for each other, for yourselves. And let's close with the practice principles. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts exactly the dream, each moment life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts exactly the dream, each moment life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts exactly the dream, each moment life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment compassion's way. Have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you are, however things are. Take care. Turn it back over to Maria.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Thank you for that talk. I can feel things settling in me. They always do when I listen to your talk. So thank you so much. And if you'd like to offer Dana for Suzanne an open door, I'll put it in the chat at opendoorzencommunity.org and you'll find a place to donate there. And if you'd like to stay for a further 30 minutes, do pop yourself into gallery view and I'll be with you in just a moment. But thank you all so much. Thank you.